Yeah, we should be good to go.
Okay, well, hey everybody. So today we are debating creationism versus evolution. We're so happy you could join us tonight. The link to the speakers are in the description below, as long as myself and Raw Matt. Today we have Bill and emotionally stunted Emoticon. Uh, Bill will be kicking us off, I believe. Is that correct, Bill?
That's my understanding, yes.
All right. Do you guys want to give a quick introduction before we get into it?
Sure. My name is Bill Morgan. I'm a mechanical engineer. I've been one for about 36 years, and I'm the creationist.
Awesome. All right, an emotionally stunted emoticon. You want to give us a quick who you are and what you do and why you do it?
Well, my name is Mike, but I go by Emotionally Stunted Emoticon on YouTube. I'm from the Caribbean. I'm from Grenada. That's an island at the south of the Caribbean. I guess I was introduced to creationism and evolution about 5 years ago. And I guess I was convinced that evolution was true, and here I am today.
Outstanding. All right, we're going to put 15 minutes on the clock, and I will start at your first word, Bill.
Okay, let me get my PowerPoint here going.
Oh, that was it. That was the word. No, no, I'm just kidding.
Hi, my name is Bill Morgan. I'm happy to do this debate today on creation versus evolution. Which is the better explanation? Everyone should always ask themselves if their goal is truth. For many people, their goal is trying to prove what they want to be true. I think an open-minded person seeking truth will see creation as the better explanation. Quick definitions. The definition of design is something that is planned for. Chance is something that is not planned. Can anyone be 100% certain something is the result of design? Well, suppose you come home from work one day and you see this on your driveway, 15 stones in that pattern. You'd probably think the pattern was by chance because it's scattered and random, but you can't be sure because you weren't there. Suppose you come home from work the next day and you see this on your driveway, 6 stones in a straight line. Now you'd probably say, hey, I think that's a design, but you can't be sure because you weren't there. You could be 99% sure and 1% faith. Suppose you come home from work the next day, you see this on your driveway, 150 stones in a circle. Now you'd say, I'm really certain that's a design, but you can't be 100%. You could be 99.999% sure, but you still got a little bit of faith because you weren't there. So a question for everybody. What's more complex, 150 stones in a circle or the human eye? The human eye is much a better design. I believe 99.999 all the way around the earth a few times, that's a design, but I've still got a little bit of faith because I was not present there. I believe the atheist has more faith than
fine under their own theory, which is a bit ironic. So the question to ask is, how can irreducibly complex systems evolve in the first place? So let's take a hypothetical scenario. Let's imagine a cell needs 2 compounds from its environment, A and B, to survive. The cell picks up a function to produce B from A, and because A is abundant and B is not, this serves as an advantage up to the cell and it propagates throughout the species. Now let's imagine the cell loses a function to pick up B. Now because the cell can still produce B from A, the loss of function doesn't result to the detriment of the species. And now we see that the biochemical pathway from A to B becomes irreducibly complex, but of course hadn't always been so. So here we see how irreducibly complex systems can evolve over time by means of evolution. Now, in reality, we actually observe this kind of stepwise metabolic evolution in the present day. For example, this paper describes the evolution of 2 distinct nylonase enzymes in one flavobacterium in the wild, representing a 2-step pathway in less than 1 human lifetime. So how much of a stretch is it to imagine more complex pathways evolving over billions of years? Evolution of the trochlea. It's an argument Bill made in the previous debate. Now, this is the trochlea. It's basically like a sling, and the superior oblique is the muscle that runs through it. And Bill wanted to know how this could have evolved if the muscle had to, loop itself through the trochlea. Now, the first thing we have to know is that the muscles at the back of the eye, they're not just free in the back of the eye, they're actually running through multiple ligaments and fatty tissue and so on. Here's another cross-section of the eye, which shows how the muscles in red run through fatty tissue in yellow and ligaments in white. This is just a close-up version of the same thing. The trochlea is at the top. So basically, I'm going to use this as a template as to show how the trochlea could move up to this current position it's at. So here we have an eye. The gray area is the bone, the red is the ligament, and well, the eye at the bottom corner. The green circles are muscles or tendons, right? So during the course of the evolution of the eye, the tendon moves further up to the top of the skull, maybe by the ligament pulling on it, or the main suspensory ligament moving away from it, and then it detaches from the main ligament, remaining intact with the ligament attached to the roof of the eye. Now, all the steps in this would be advantageous to the organism, since every step would cause more torque to the eye, the eye would be able to turn more. So eventually you have a trochlea. This is a trochlea. But however, the trochlea is made out of cartilage, not ligament. Now, the thing about ligament is that ligament cells are sometimes infused with cartilage cells that prevents them from frailing. And they also have the ability to differentiate from ligament cells into cartilage cells. So all that has to happen here is that the trochlea transform from a ligament type to cartilage type cells. So this may not be the exact way the trochlea evolved, but this is not necessary to refute arguments of irreducible complexity, who is arguing that it's impossible to have evolved. So all Bill needs to do is tell me which step or steps he thinks is impossible, and we can discuss from there. Now, I wanted to address something an argument he made about transitional forms from an argument he took from this book and this guy's book. Basically, what it was criticizing is that the cladogram in the museum didn't contain intermediates and direct ancestors. And then he followed up with a quote from a paleontologist that says, quote, "From my reading of the fossil record of dinosaurs, no direct ancestors have been found for any dinosaur species. Alas, my list of dinosaurian ancestors is an empty one," end quote. Now, first of all, what I want to point out is that the cladogram wasn't meant to show the evolution of dinosaurs. What it was meant to show is how the major lineage of dinosaurs relate to each other. Furthermore, they were criticizing the cladogram for not placing species on the nodes and the branches. You don't put species on the nodes and the branches. So basically, they were criticizing the cladogram for being a cladogram. Now, if you really want to know the origins of dinosaurs, for example, you can go to the University of Maryland. They have some beautiful online lectures that shows the sequential evolution of many lineages of dinosaurs. So here we have the evolution of sauropods, the evolution of ceratopsians, and the evolution of birds. Now, as for the quote that they clearly didn't understand, of course the fossil record doesn't have any de facto direct ancestors of any given ancestor species, because the fossil record doesn't represent a lineage of direct descent, but rather a phylogeny of more distantly and closely related cousins on the tree of life. That's why, for example, this orthogenetic horse evolution series was unintentionally falsified, yeah, I know the quote, and replaced with a more accurate version of horse evolution. Finally, I wanted to address something Bill Morgan said in his debate. He says that evolutionists, they believe in evolution not because of the evidence and, because of the 6 reasons he have here. Now, in Grenada, evolution is not taught, but what is taught is agricultural science. From this, I've learned that different varieties of mangoes and so on can be grafted and cross-pollinated because they're related. The same with different varieties of citrus. I've learned that you can cross-pollinate a garlic with an onion because they're related. In fact, a garlic is just a modified cluster of onions tightly bounded into one bulb, if you look at it closely. I've learned that you can cross-pollinate pumpkins with zucchinis and patty pan squash and acorn squash because they're related. You can also graft pumpkins, cantaloupes, watermelons, and cucumbers because, again, they're all related. And mind you, this is macroevolution, not micro.
You have 1 minute.
All right. I've also learned that you can graft tomatoes, eggplants, bell peppers, and potatoes together because, again, they're related. That's why they can graft. And this is macroevolution. And finally, and most surprisingly, you can graft tomato plants on tobacco plants because, again, they're related. So when knowing this, when I first heard about evolution, it made sense to me. The only difference is that what I knew about agriculture is that it was called agriculture instead of evolution. That was the only difference. So what he should put in his slide is that maybe people believe in the theory of evolution because they might just know things creationists don't. All right, so that's the end of my rebuttal here, and we will take up the rest in the discussion.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we're going to move right into the discussion. Get your questions in now. We need some questions for ESC. Tag Jim Majors or Modern Day Debate in the live chat, and we'll get your questions asked. So if we want to just cruise right into it, what did we agree? 2-minute questions or two 2-minute questions?
Two.
Okay, that sounds good. So Bill, if you want to take the lead, I will start whenever you're ready.
Okay. First, sadly, he didn't address my questions in the rebuttal, but we'll move on from that. Mike, one of my questions was, how do you think life originated? What is your best explanation? Is it a scientific explanation? And please note, I didn't ask if you knew how life originated. What's your best explanation?
Right. So, well, the only explanation I know of is that life emerged from chemistry by means of abiogenesis.
How do you know that?
Well, that's basically the scientific consensus now.
So do you always follow consensus, or do you follow evidence in your eyes?
The evidence is the consensus.
Well, 300 years ago, you would have been a creationist because that would have been the consensus. Are you a follower or a leader? And I ask that with respect. Follow the evidence, Mike. Life
Right.
comes from life. You've heard of the cell theory and the law of biogenesis, right?
Right. So the law of biogenesis is to do with extant life or complex life. It was a rebuttal to spontaneous generation, that life cannot spontaneously generate from non-life. Abiogenesis is a whole different concept.
But do you believe non-living matter became living? And why do you believe that? Besides, your ears have heard it. Have your eyes seen evidence for that? Why do you believe life came from non-life by natural means?
Again, that seems to be where the evidence is pointing at the moment. If you have another explanation, then please provide it. If you have.
What evidence?
Well, it has been demonstrated that more complex molecules can be generated under certain conditions and so on. All the steps are not known, but at least we know some things. I'm not an expert on abiogenesis. Okay. I need to talk to someone else. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe would you conclude that it's impossible that for life to come from non-life?
I'll let you answer that question. That's going to be 2 minutes.
Okay. And Mike, everything I ask is respectfully. We're buddies, just trying to find out the truth, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, so I got to ask a question now?
Yes.
Okay. So my question is, what is the difference between a designed gene that was inserted into a genome compared to a gene that was duplicated and then modified to perform the same function or similar functions as the designed gene?
Do you mean, I'm not being, well, maybe I'm being dumb here. I'm just asking, are you talking about genetically modified food? Or
No, I'm talking about gene duplication. Gene duplication. Usually creationists say that evolution cannot generate new information. So I'm asking the question to see what's the difference between a designed gene and a duplicated gene. So basically I'm asking, what is the difference between a designed gene that was inserted into a genome and a duplicated gene that was modified to perform a similar or the same function as the designed gene?
Okay, I'll try to answer your question. I don't know if I will or not. As I understand, genes make proteins, and if a gene is making a protein, whether it's by design or from its own replication, it's doing a fine job. I believe information always requires an information giver. I do know this. I know that we have more mutations in our genome than our parents had. Our parents had more mutations than their parents had. So just based upon that mathematics, as time goes on, we're getting more and more mistakes or mutations in our genome. That tells us that at the beginning, which you think was randomness, the genome was purer by chance, and over time it's getting. I believe the creator made a pure genome, and over time we're getting these mutations. But the origin of the genome is a big challenge for your side. Would you not agree? 3.2 billion base pairs of DNA that perform have 10,000 genes making 100,000 proteins. That's a challenge, is it not?
No, not necessarily, because the evolution also takes place on a genomic level as well. The genome can become more complex. It can expand. You can have things like gene duplications. chromosome duplications or even whole genome duplications, or you can have like insertions of genes from horizontal gene transfer and so on. So these mechanisms are understood by biochemists and so on, how the genomes evolve. Yeah, so it's not necessarily a big mystery as to how these things come to be.
Okay, that was 3 minutes. So you guys want to switch over to the next set of questions?
Okay. I think it's my question, right? He has the last one.
Yep.
Okay, Mike. Engineer to engineer, what is your best explanation for the origin of matter and energy? We both took thermodynamics, and we know that matter and energy is neither created nor destroyed. So matter and energy did not have a natural means, and it can't be eternal because of the second law of thermodynamics. So my question is, what is your best scientific explanation for how we got all this matter and all this energy in our big, beautiful universe?
Okay, so to be honest, the question is irrelevant to the debate. We're talking about biology. Why are we on cosmology?
Because creation looks at the whole baseball game. We love the beginnings, and I understand evolutionists want to ignore it. But as a creationist, we include the origin of matter and energy. Okay. So what's your best explanation?
Okay, so we're dealing with evolution here. To use a similar kind of argument, when a baker is making a cake, it's not important that he knows the origins of wheat or whatever. He just starts from the flour and so on, makes a cake. But as for the origin of the universe, I don't know. I really don't know. You may have to talk to someone else, maybe Lawrence Krauss. I don't know.
I didn't ask if you knew. What is your best explanation? It's a different question.
Yeah, but I don't have an explanation, so I wouldn't have a best one.
Okay, if thermodynamics says it can't happen by natural means, would you accept that? Or does that hinder your pursuit of trying to prove what you want to be true?
No, the laws of physics is within the universe, not before it. All these laws apply to within, not outside of it. So we don't know what's happening.
It applies to matter and energy, and that applies to the origin.
Right, but the laws they have their limitations, right? So the laws of the universe apply within the universe. We don't know if they apply outside or before it.
Is it possible you don't like the implications of the first law of thermodynamics, so you're going to say it's not true at the beginning? Is that possible? It's never been falsified. Is your goal truth, Mike?
Yeah, my goal is truth, yeah.
Well, the laws of thermodynamics clearly teach us the universe didn't get here by natural means. You don't get energy from nothing, Mike. As an engineer, believe me, you know that.
Yeah, but no one is proposing the universe came from an absolute nothing.
So do you believe it's eternal?
The universe itself, no.
Matter and energy is the universe.
Yeah, but the universe, the observable universe, what we interact with, that's the universe. Before it, that was not the universe. That was just the singularity or whatever. I don't know what physics applied to that.
I understand, and believe me, I understand the pickle you're in, because if I was on your side, I wouldn't have an answer either. The laws of thermodynamics are a nightmare for the atheist. But be an open-minded person, look into it.
Okay. Do you have a response to that EC, or do you want to? I'm sorry, ESC, or do you want to just move into the Q&A?
He can ask me a question.
Oh yeah, you have one more question. That's right. My apologies.
Oh, one more question. Okay. Let me see. Could I use this, 2 more slides for this last question?
Yes, fine with me.
Okay. Sure, that's fine with me. I'll start it whenever you start.
All right.
Just to make sure that's relevant to the topic.
Yeah, it is relevant to the.
Okay.
Let me see. So, are you seeing my slides now?
Yes. It started screen sharing.
Okay. Let me see. Okay. So, knowing that these are related, these plants are related, and that creationists accept that these fossils are related, where am I wrong in accepting that this evolutionary sequence of hominids is true?
I would say genetics. If, as you know, I'm sure you do, the history of evolution is continually proposed false ancestors between humans and apes. It's often very difficult to study the original fossil. You're familiar with Piltdown Man, of course. 50 years taught us fact of evolution. Many people earned their PhDs on Piltdown Man, and then they studied it, and they said, hey, it's a human jaw with an ape, or human skull with an ape jaw in it with teeth wedged in, filed and stained. Many people don't see it. What you showed me, Mike, and again, with respect, are drawings, the theory of evolution, drawings and stories. Where is the living evidence? Your eyes should be able to see transitional forms. Why have they all vaporized? Every transitional form is neither in the fossil record or living, but they're in drawings and textbooks. Base your conclusion on observation, not hypothesis. So what you showed me were drawings and stories. Where are they today? Why aren't they alive today?
Okay. So first off, the diagram with the ceratopsians I've shown you, that's actually a diagram from Answers in Genesis, right? Now, the diagrams are based on real fossils. Now, drawings are used in most instances because they can illustrate more than a picture can. For example, if you're illustrating, for example, the eye or parts of the body or parts of the brain, you'd use a drawing instead of a picture because a picture doesn't depict as much detail as you would like. So that's why you would use a drawing to do so. For example, maybe like things like the water cycle or maybe the core of the Earth or the solar system or even a map, you would use a drawing instead of an actual picture because the drawing does more justice in what you're trying to achieve. You're trying to illustrate something. But if you want to see the fossils, you could just Google them.
Okay, you have a response to that, Bill, and we'll move into the Q&A.
But I think he's conceding there's nothing to observe. We just have to rely on the drawings and authenticity. And the history of evolution is numerous errors in those same drawings. Trust your eyes. You don't need to be a weatherman to know it's raining. Apes make apes, people make people, snakes make snakes.
Right, and humans are apes.
By your definition, not by genetics.
No, by taxonomists. For example, do you know that corn and bamboo are within the same family?
Yes.
Right, so how different are they as compared to a human and an ape?
Okay, and again, here comes the simplicity of Bill. That's me. There's a whole lot of things on this planet. People have classified them together, species, genus, family. And many things in the families are very closely related, and some seem to have different common ancestors. So your example, they were classified, doesn't mean they are related, but they're classified as common to the family.
That's correct. Humans are apes regardless of if we're related to them or not. So even though we're not related to apes, we're still apes.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
we have a lot in common, but we're not related.
We're still apes by definition, in the same way we're mammals by definition, in the same way we're tetrapods by definition.
I've been called worse, but I do not have ape-like ancestors, and I rely on mitochondrial DNA and genetics with that conclusion.
Right. So, you don't need ape ancestors to be an ape. You're an ape by definition.
Like I said, I've been called worse. I used to work construction, but I only have human ancestors.
Okay.
Jim was in the Army. He's been called worse. But I have no ape ancestors. I agree with you there, Mike.
We're going to go ahead and move into the Q&A, and after the Q&A, you guys will get your closing statements. The first question comes from Snake Was Right, and he's asking Bill, why are human eyes designed so badly that there is a blind spot while other animals don't have this flaw?
That is a great question. I think the eyes are the most marvelous design in the world, and I think if someone's talking about the blind spot, they're being desperate. We talked about the beautiful optic nerve, and I hope Mike addresses the optic nerve. As an electrical engineer, he should marvel at it. But where we have our optic nerve is a minor blind spot that people don't notice. And secular people often admit that we don't even notice this blind spot. There's not piles of dead bodies because of this blind spot, that the other eye compensates for that, while other experts in this field say the cells around it can compensate, that the rods and cones work together. And most of the information that the rods and cones create do not make it down the optic nerve. It has a processor. So Snake is right. Make a list. good thing to do in life, pros and cons. Do pro design arguments for the eye, you'll have 600,000 million. Anti-arguments, a blind spot that's never affected a person one bit.
Okay. And the next question's for you as well. As a matter of fact, most of them are
If he
for
wants to
you.
rebut to my answer, is that okay, Jim?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
If you want to rebut to that, ASC, feel free to.
Okay. So what I wanted to ask is, did God make one primordial eye for which all the descendants who share the eye share a common ancestor? And irrespective of the sequence of the evolution of the eye, you said that you need the retina and the nerve and the visual cortex. No, you don't need that for an eye to work. Jellyfish has eyes with no nerves and no brains, and some varieties would have eyes with a nerve, but again, they still have no brains, but the eyes still work. So the eyes actually evolve by means the eye section first, then the nerves, and then the brain. But to exactly which the intricate parts of the eye, which part first, I would have to research that for you.
Could I give a quick, fun response, Mike?
Sure.
Okay, I didn't ask about the eye as much as I asked about vision. And again, we're all trying to find out what's true. Vision requires collection of data, transport of data, and interpretation of data. The eye in our bodies collects data, the optic nerve moves the data, and the vision interprets the data. The jellyfish has to do all three functions or it doesn't work. So my question is, which step evolved first, the collection, the transportation, or the interpretation of data? They all need to work together. So I was asking about vision, not just the eye. Okay.
Okay, we have a $5 super chat from Subtracted. Thank you so much for your super chat. It says, "Hey ESE, I love studying evolution, but I've always wondered why the human species haven't speciated for over 200,000 years." You have a response to that?
Okay, so speciation usually happens when a population becomes isolated, and then genetic differences accumulate between the two populations. But because humans are so intermingling, I don't think we would speciate anytime soon.
Okay, you have a response to that, Bill?
Yes, way back in the 80s, probably before Mike was born, when I first went from atheist to creationist, I heard a speaker who absolutely said at Saddleback College in California that the different races evolved independently. And I was in about row 5 and my jaw dropping going, what in the world is she talking about? Well, now we know that we are all related through mitochondrial Eve, and that there's only one race. We're all human. We didn't evolve independently, and that's a consensus among everybody. But people have been isolated quite a bit. But as far as I know, any person on the planet has the capability of interbreeding with another person on the planet, no matter how isolated that they've been. So I don't think we're ever going to speciate. And I do have a slide. You could argue by species. I think Mike will get a kick out of this because I noticed some of his pictures. You could argue I'm a different species than a supermodel. A supermodel would have nothing to do with me. I'm too old, I'm not rich enough, and not good looking enough. Morphology often causes different species to not want to hang out with each other, but genetically we could interbreed. John Sanford Cornell, PhD in plant biology and genetics, I asked him, I said, could a house cat interbreed with a tiger? He said that's never been done, but he feels that it could. Now, there's a fun term called lumpers and splitters. Some people see a different species under every rock. Some people says, no, they're all the same kind or family. So by saying a house cat genetically could interbreed with a tiger, you could call them the same kind or same family. But if they won't even look at each other, you could say they're the same species. You follow me? So morphology looks is different than genetics, DNA, which limits the number of species. Hope that made sense.
Okay, we're going to keep trucking right along. The next question's for you, Bill. It says, it's from Jacob Braun. It says, if there is anything in Genesis that we can understand in the present, so they want me to ask, is there anything in Genesis that we can understand in the present that would be meaningless to people in the past?
Well, that's a great question. Okay, this is fun trivia. The third word in the Bible, beginning. Fourth word in the Bible, God. In the beginning, God. When the Bible was written, everybody can agree the Bible was written a long time ago. I'm not saying people believe it, but it was written a long time ago. Over time, the Bible would either become an amazing, hilarious joke or amazingly historically ahead of its time. Aristotle always taught the universe was eternal, a celestial sphere and eternal. The third word in the Bible, beginning. So you had the Bible versus Aristotle. Over time, through physics, proton decay, thermodynamics, people now conclude the universe did have a beginning. Everyone I know believes the universe had a beginning, but the Bible didn't listen to Aristotle. It said it had a beginning, so it was either written by lucky goat shepherds or kings, or inspired by the God who knows physics better than anyone. So the second law of thermodynamics is confirmed in the third word of the Bible, beginning. The fourth word of the Bible is God. The beginning was a result of supernatural intervention, and that's the first law of thermodynamics. So I conclude the first four words of the Bible nail two laws of science. The universe had a beginning, and it had to be supernatural, which contradicted man. And this is the kind of stuff that I enjoy reading and pursuing. So many people might have been mocked. 500 years ago, people might have said, "Hey, Morgan, you idiot. Aristotle said the universe is eternal. Your Bible said it had a beginning." And maybe I would go, blah, 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 blah. But time has proven the first four words of Genesis nail two laws of science, thousands of years ahead of its time. I could go on, but I won't.
All right, good deal. Do you have a response to that? Yes, we have a lot of questions to get through, so I think from here on out, unless you guys absolutely have to respond, we're just going to have the question. The person is addressed to answer the question.
No, you can go ahead.
Okay, good deal. Next one's for Bill as well. Why doesn't your God appear in history before the Jews? This question's from Hayward Jeb Lomi.
Let's see. That's like saying, Jim, why did you steal that mustache and glue it to your face? It's a presupposition. You know what I'm getting at? And you're smarter at philosophy than me. That's a presupposition. I reject his premise. I believe Adam and Eve were real people and that no one predated them except by their hypothesis and perhaps presupposition. I think I answered the question, right?
Well, I think when he says appear in history, I think it means like, archaeological, anthropological, to textual.
Well, Clint Eastwood said a man's got to know his limitations. I will never bluff to know things that I'm not good at. I'm not an archaeologist, but if he emails me that question, I'll refer it to an archaeologist. I would assume there's very good answers to his question, but if I were to throw something out here, I would be guessing. Can I give you my email?
Fair enough. Yeah. Feel free to give it out.
BillyJack1@hotmail.com. And it's good to be humble, and I have a lot to be humble about, but I would say I would like to pursue what he asked.
Outstanding. Okay. Let's see. The next question, I'm going to try to mix it up a little bit. This one's for Stunted. It says, it's from Evolution is Zombie Science. The question is, if the backbone of science is observation, then why is evolutionism taught as fact when nobody has observed the process of evolution over millions of years?
You can't observe the process over millions of years, but you can observe the evidence of the process. So, for example, when I said in my opening that atavisms and vestiges only appear in lineages whose common ancestor possess the character in question, that's because of evolution. It's only true because evolution is true. There is no need for atavisms and vestiges to fit a nested hierarchy like that. For example, evolution would predict that you would never find breasts on amphibians or feathers on amphibians. You would never find cellulose walls in animal cells. That's because of the bifurcating process of evolution. Plants and animals split long before cellulose walls appeared, so you won't find that. And that's the kind of thing we use to trace evolution and so on. By atavisms and vestiges, we can predict transitional forms. So, for example, like the manatee has toenails on its flipper. It's a vestigial toenail. We predicted that if evolution be true, that manatees evolved from terrestrial ancestors, and we should find that. And then we actually found the transitions of the manatee or the dugong to its terrestrial ancestors. Same thing with the elephants or plesiosaurs and ichthyosaurs and so on. All the transitions are there, predicted by the theory based on atavisms and vestiges.
Okay, great answer.
Could I have a quickie?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Okay, as we talked about earlier, systems, I propose, cannot evolve. How did atoms evolve? There should be evidence. How did molecules? How did cells? How did tissue? How did the heart? How did the circulatory system? How did people? And with all respect, I see Mike waving his hands a lot, but there should be gobs of evidence of this process if it happened by natural means. I believe the human body was instantly created with all the body systems functioning, that you can't wait around for a circulatory system to evolve. Skeletal, nervous. It's the best, and in my opinion, the only science and logical conclusion for living organisms. Instant creation.
Okay.
Okay,
We just got a super chat in. Hang on one second. We got a super chat in, and it's relevant. From Subtracted for $2. Thank you so much for your super chat. It says, Bill, how would you demonstrate intelligent design?
150 stones in a circle on a driveway. The human eye, the human tear duct, the human brain. And I honestly really try to be fair. And sometimes I shock people when I give a lesson. Can you know the eyes of design? People say, yeah. I said, no, you can't, because you weren't there. But it's the best explanation. We are looking back into history, and that science can only take us so far. But I think Mike would agree, if he saw 150 stones in a circle on his driveway, he'd conclude that's a design. And then when he combs his hair or brushes his teeth and looks in the mirror and see those eyes and nose and ears, I think if there wasn't a premise in his thought, he would say, that's an even better design. So 100% proof, I can't do it. But you look at complexity and function, and it's a much better explanation.
Okay. All right. Next question for Stunted from Evolutionist Zombie Science. How did living fossils remain unchanged over supposed millions of years if evolution has changed worms into humans in the same time frame?
Okay, I think that's a quote he's quoting, but living fossils are stasis. First of all, stasis only applies to gross morphology because the genome must evolve because organisms reproduce sexually, the genes must evolve. No, here's how stasis works. We know that dogs evolved from wolves, right? So we see the diversity within wolves today, or within dogs today, but there are still wolves that looks exactly like the wolves from thousands of years ago. So what happens in stasis is that some lineages evolve and some lineages remain relatively stable. So all I want him to do is name one species he thinks remained stable for millions of years, and I would show you how diverse that group of organisms is. Usually when creationists say that, they would cite things like shrimps and pine trees and so on. But there are hundreds of species of shrimps, thousands of species of crustaceans. So the actual diversity within the clay they're talking about, they always ignore that and just try to choose one organism and another one that looks the same, ignoring the diversity. It's like me taking a wolf from 10,000 years ago, comparing it to a wolf today and say, look, the wolf didn't evolve, ignoring that dogs came from wolves.
Okay. Next question is for Bill from Jeremy Mendoza. It says, if your eyes were perfectly designed, then why do you wear glasses?
Because I can't see without them.
Amen.
No. Okay, that's a great question. I respect it. Once again, that's the pros and the cons. 10 million pros. Over time, things are subjected to entropy. That is similar. I'm not putting down Jeremy's question, so don't take it personally. That's like saying we see a car accident and refuse to believe that there's a car designer. Just because something goes downhill doesn't mean there was a design in front of it. Does that make sense? I believed, to get spiritual and physics and thermodynamics, we're subject to entropy. Every cell division, we get 3 more mutations. This is a planet of extinction and death and decay. And my eyes are a good example of that. And so is my skin and et cetera as you get older. It's called entropy. So that is how the physical world works? And does that mean God is a mean God? That's a good question. That's a philosophical question, of which I can answer if you want. But I still believe my eyes are fantastically beautiful designs, even though I need to wear glasses.
Okay. All right, let's see here. We got quite a few for Bill. Let's see. Oh, Stunted. What scientific evidence is there to suggest mutations and natural selection have no limits?
I never said evolution has limits. That's why, for example, a dog can never produce a non-dog, or a cat can never produce a non-cat. But and you must remain within the clade which you come from. So, for example, you'll never see a vertebrate becoming a non-vertebrate in that kind of sense. So there are limitations to evolution in terms of size, speed, and so on, because there are limitations brought on by physics, biochemistry, and genetics. But the kind of variation they're talking about, meaning the kind of limitation they're talking about, meaning the limitation that would cause two animals to not be related, doesn't exist, because they can't distinguish what is related from what is not.
Okay. And I think this is the last question from the heathen for Bill. It says, The heathen says, what is the point of humans having a tailbone, a useless appendix, and male nips?
Okay, let's talk about the Cossacks. Heathen.
That sounds dirty. Can we just call it a tailbone? No, I'm just kidding.
No, you have a dirty mind. That explains some things. No. Anyways, that was a good one. I love humor. Believe me. I am more clown than creationist, Mike. If we ever hang out in Grenada, you'll find that out, okay? But anyways, I love to have fun. Okay, the coccyx, and I often mispronounce the coccyx, is the end of your spine. You have 7 bones there that some people say was a useless tailbone. Heathen, I'm going to say to Mike, to Jim, to Matt, to the whole world, I will give you $1,000 cash if you have yours removed. I ask you, heathen, $1,000. You can have 20s, 50s, or 100s. Will you have your coccyx removed? If he was here, he'd probably say no. But if it's worthless, you don't need it, okay? The coccyx is not worthless. It doesn't have nerve in it, so a lot of people say it's a remnant of a tail. But to your coccyx, you have 7 muscles that attach. Now I'm going to get a little dirty, Jim, so pay attention. Just kidding. Without the coccyx, you wouldn't be able to control your bowels. You would spend my $1,000 in diapers in no time, heathen. You'd be making a dump all the time or be changing diapers all the time. You wouldn't be able to urinate. You wouldn't be able to get an erection. You didn't expect that word during this debate, did you? Those muscles are essential. Those muscles support our organs. Our organs don't stay in place by blind faith. They stay there by structural support anchored at the coccyx. So, heathen, I will give you the $1,000, but I'm going to try to talk you out of it, because if you're wearing diapers, well, there's probably no need to worry about reproducing, right? But you need your coccyx. It's there for a purpose. It's a beautiful design for anchoring muscles.
Okay. And did you want to address the appendix or nipples or anything like that?
Oh, did he say appendix?
Yes. He said.
Oh, gosh. Oh, hello?
Yeah, sorry, that's my audio.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah,
okay,
we hear you.
Okay, I can barely hear you. Not too many people in the know say the appendix is not useful anymore. They used to say, hey, look at this useless organ that we don't have. Well, the appendix is located at the end of the human sewer, at the end of the digestive system, and it's full of disease-fighting things. I believe they're called osteoclasts. I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me on that. I can't remember the name, but it's full of disease-fighting members, perhaps white blood cells. But the perfect place to fight infection is at the end of your digestive system. I have heard from some sources, some people contradict it, that people with their appendix have fewer instances of colon cancer, but it's not a useless organ. It's part of the immune system. And male nipples, they have their purposes, but Jim the player can tell you what those are. But males do not need them for survival. I would agree with that. That doesn't mean they got there by chance.
Jim, I hear no audio coming from you.
Well,
there you go.
Perfect. Okay, sorry about that. No, I wouldn't know anything about male nips other than my own. But yeah, that's it's one of these unsolved mysteries, I guess. Okay, well, if there aren't any more questions, I don't believe there are, and I apologize to anybody that I missed. But if it's okay with you guys, we'll just move right on into the closing statements.
Okay, I think I go first, right?
Yes, sir.
So let me click share here. There's my buddy, but that's not my conclusion. All right, the big conclusion. All right, we talked about which came first, the chicken or the egg. Mike said an egg. Well, Mike, you would need two eggs. They teach that in biology, as you know. You need a male, you need a female. The male and female have to be present at the same time, at the same place. They need the proper food, oxygen, temperature, gravity, atmospheric pressure. There are thousands of things they need for the male and female to be able to reproduce. I believe everything is a design. We're very worried about global warming, but just think what a narrow temperature band is comfortable for humans. I used to design a lot of air conditioning systems. God created a universal air conditioning system that maintains the temperature pretty well effectively. So for the chicken and the egg, I believe it was 2 chickens, 1 male rooster, 1 female hen. They were instantly created. They had to be adults because they have to feed themselves before they can start a family. I believe the same answer to bears, birds, humans, male and female, adult, same time, same place. Does that take faith? Yes. Is that a miracle? Yes. But Mike's miracle is much, much, much huger than mine to believe matter made itself, energy made itself, and all the cells got together and made a male and female chicken. The sun made the right temperature at the right distance, the right humidity, the right gravity. Mike's miracles far exceed my miracles as to origins and the chicken and the egg. Okay, let me get where'd my pen go? Okay, so there it is, Mr. and Mrs. Chicken, same time, same place. A lot of these questions weren't addressed, and I know we were limited on time. And I didn't mean to be unfair, but there's no natural explanation for something as beautiful as the optic nerve, photosynthesis, leaves. Mike, every time you look at a leaf, maybe you'll have a nice thought of what a beautiful solar panel you're looking at that can produce oxygen, shade, food for animals, etc. The systems can evolve step by step by step. I think we both know that, but the conclusion can be painful that there is something greater than us. Vision, it all has to work together. Notice I didn't just say the eye, the optic nerve, etc. Matter and energy, atheists don't have any explanation for that, and I respect it. Origin of life, atheists don't have an explanation, and I respect it. And human bacteria, once again, I saw a lot of drawings, saw a lot of stories. I didn't see empirical evidence for that. Why do I believe in a designer exists? Because it designed. Everything I know about DNA, RNA, proteins, ribosomes, cells, molecules, eyes, livers, kidneys, spleens. You can name any animal, any part of it. I see design. I have a pit bull. She's got really cool curved hair on her elbows. I believe every hair on my dog requires DNA programming. Programming requires a programmer. I believe that God is so big, he is behind every hair on every dog on this planet. That is how big he is, an IQ of infinity, power of infinity. But the alternative is that her curved dog hair got there by mutation, time, and chance. Information never arises by chance. Okay, the theory of evolution is not scientific because it has not been observed. Drawings in a book is not scientific evidence. It's story. We need observation. Evolutionism has no living evidence, no fossil evidence. Again, drawings in a book. And I could go on forever. It's called genetics and biochemistry, 2 wonderful fields that every day gives more and more evidence for creation. I don't know if I've ever shared this, but there once was a man in Iowa who was convinced he was dead. The townspeople said, "You're not dead." They couldn't convince him. So they collected all the money they could and got a guy from Harvard to come out, the world's smartest man from Harvard. The guy flew out from Harvard and said, "I understand you're dead." The man said, "Yeah, I'm dead." He said, "Do dead men bleed?" He goes, "No, dead men don't bleed." So the Harvard guy got out a pin, pricked him, and he started bleeding. He said, "I was wrong. Dead men do bleed." The point is, some people's minds are already made up. They're convinced there is no God. We evolved from bacteria. The universe is just by chance. Some people will never be convinced, but that doesn't mean I don't care about them and like them and will talk to them and still be their friend. But my real goal is to meet the open-minded person who would realize every atom in this planet is wonderfully and fearfully made. Every hair on your pet, beautiful, beautiful design, and be open to what I believe the truth is, that there is a great designer with an IQ of infinity who cares about his creation. I say this with all respect. I've talked to many, many atheists over the years. Some people are atheists because of bitterness. I had a friend who was in the Vietnam conflict, war. I call it a war. Good friends for many, many years. Never going to come to Christ probably because of what he's seen. And plus, he went through a divorce, which was devastating to him. He is emotionally at war with God and never going to come around. I still care about the God. Some people don't like the Bible's rules. It's called being human. But drinking can make someone really, really happy for 3 hours and ruin your life. Drugs can make you happy for a couple hours, ruin your life. Sex outside of marriage can make you happy for a few hours and ruin your life. The Bible's rules are not easy. The Bible is not trying to ruin your fun. It's trying to protect you long-term. Short-term fun can ruin your life. Short-term discipline and self-control can give you a long, healthy life. But I was an atheist and I didn't like the Bible's rules, so I understand that. Pride, some people really think that they're the smartest thing in the world. Make an orange tree, make a flamingo, make an ocean. Humility is strength. Pride can lead to disaster. It's good to be proud of what you do, but we shouldn't take pride that we're the smartest entity going, because we're not. Peer pressure. There's a lot of shaming going on, a lot of insults. Mike was a wonderful gentleman. I hope we can continue conversation, but often there's insults, snide remarks, etc. And some people just cave into that and go with the flow. I hope no one listening to this does that. And some people sincerely believe they're defending what they love, science. I love science. I used to hate creationists because when I was an atheist, I thought they were a threat to the thing I love, science. When I heard science explanations for creation, I felt that I was lied to in what creationists represent. I know many creationists with PhDs. I think Mike's the first engineer I've met, second engineer I've met that would be an atheist. But most engineers at least believe there's a designer and a planner behind all of this. So the question of the day, are you going to believe that there's a designer with an IQ of infinity? Or are you going to put your faith and trust in nature with an IQ of 0? And once again, are you going to believe drawings and words? Or are you going to believe your eyes? I'd like to thank Mike very much. And I'd like to thank Jim and Matt for putting this together. I enjoyed it. And once again, the thing I like about this, it forces me to do more and more research and more learning. And I wish everyone all the best.
Thank you so much, Bill. It was a pleasure having you on. And thank you so much for your closing statement. We're going to go ahead and move right over to ESC. If you want to give your closing statement, I will start. Just go until you're done. I think you went about eight or 9 minutes. So that sounds about right.
Looks like he's froze.
Uh-oh.
Maybe he's praying.
Come back. Okay, we're going to give him a couple of seconds, and if he doesn't come back, well, I don't know.
He's muted. I don't know.
Yeah, well, he's muted and he's frozen. But everybody who's watching, like and subscribe. The links for the debaters tonight are in the description below. Go and check out their channels.
Oh, there
see
he
their
is.
arguments.
I seen him move for a second.
Okay, all right. Are you back? Oh, you kind of came back. You're coming back. One frame at a time. You got this. One pixel over the other. There you go. Ready when you are, man.
Frozen.
Okay. And most importantly, like and subscribe Modern Day Debate. They putting on great debates. I will be doing some pretty awesome debates in the future that you should definitely be looking out for. You can follow me right here. Anybody interested? Are you back, ESE? Rob, Matt, you want to go ahead and plug your stuff, man?
Sure. Yeah. Well, again, thank you, everybody. Thanks for your super chats, especially. That was great. Thanks for your questions, because without those, we wouldn't have an ending to this. People love their Q&A. And stay tuned here on this channel for tomorrow night, when Standing for Truth and I myself are going to be taking on Jordan from Reasons to Doubt on this channel. So that's our plug there. And then
what's the title, Matt?
The title is going to be, is there scientific evidence for Genesis?
Ooh.
Call me.
So that'll be good. That'll be fun. And thanks, Jim. That was awesome, man. You took over tonight.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. I kind of steamrolled that.
No, that's awesome, because I'm sure James always has, just me doing it. So I'm sure there's got to be more faces that want to do it.
Well, and again, thank you everybody in the live chat. I apologize if I missed any questions. But yeah, like and subscribe, everybody. Love you guys. Always happy to come out, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. See you, Praise.